There are 400 million deaf people living in the world.
Oh, wow.
Gospel one time. How much is the population of America? All of the deaf people moved to America. It would totally populate the United States. This is us. Yeah, we'll turn off the lights. Okay. Deaf and have preached ever since. Just finished 56 years of ministry to the deaf. Some of the things that you can't read about my wife, she was saved 1949, made sure of her salvation in 1965, but graduated from nursing school. She's an RN, also has a master's degree in Bible counseling, and will do most of the counseling for our church with the women now. She has 5 that she's working with, and one is a Jewish lady that just popped up about 2-3 months ago, and she's beginning to meet with her once in a while, once a week, and talk with her about the Messiah. Okay? This is my home church in Tennessee. It's in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I live in Georgia, but I travel back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Not as long as from Ken Mackey's home to here. It takes me less than 10 minutes from my home to the church. This is my mission board, COME, and if you'll remember, we before had COME, now we're COME, International Baptist Ministry. We wanted to add the name Baptist to our ministry. That's my sending church in Derby, Kansas. I travel, as you know, all over America, preaching to the deaf and hearing. The purpose is to encourage people to surrender to work with the deaf people, not only here in America, but in many, many different foreign countries also. 1993, I made my first trip to a different foreign country, Romania, and I went over in January of 1993. Cold, yeah. I promise never to do that again. But I almost froze. But there I met with an interpreter for the deaf, and I asked her, I said, do the deaf have a Bible class or a church service of any kind here? She said, I've interpreted for the deaf 33 years. They've never had a Bible class or a church service of any kind. Really touched my heart, and I said, I will come back and I will preach to the deaf here. Well, in the spring, I went for 4 weeks to learn the Romanian Sign Language, and then David Hansen and I went back in the fall in November and preached to the deaf in 3 different cities. Many of them probably the first time that the deaf had ever heard the gospel. So since that time, I have touched 18 different foreign countries, and I have preached to the deaf in 8 different sign languages and had deaf people saved in 5 of those. So very happy. Of course, when we go to a new country, the first thing that we have to do is learn the sign language. And this is in Uruguay, in South America. This is a missionary that invited me to come into that country. Found out that there was a deaf church there with a deaf man as the pastor of that church. And I went there and found out that they had printed a sign language book, but it's in Spanish. I don't understand Spanish. So we sat and I write the English word in every picture, every picture, every picture. Then the deaf pastor came over to the house and we signed through that book. Many signs were wrong.
Of course.
And I asked him, I said, this was printed, this was in 2007 that it was printed, this was 2009. And I said, why so many wrong signs? He said, because they're not asked to death. Yeah, so you remember Mark chapter 16 and verse 15, it says, go preach. And I go into the different foreign countries to learn sign language there so that I can preach to the deaf. I want to improve their life, but if improve their life and they die and go to hell, what profit? So I go to preach the gospel to the deaf in these different countries. Like Brazil, I'll be going back there in January next year. I'm making the plans now to apply for visa, airline tickets and so forth, planning that now. Full month of January. We have 2 deaf camps and 1 training interpreters, and then I will be preaching in 2 different deaf churches while there. All of the other, Peru, so forth. In Bulgaria, we arrived in one name of the city is called Varna. V-A-R-N-A, Varna, that's the sign Varna. There's nothing for the deaf there, and so we have Bible study classes, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But then we heard about a deaf school in another city, and in the paper this morning here, in the travel section, they have a thing and some pictures about that city. It's called Plovdiv, Plovdiv. The sign is this. And I've been there many times. And we found out that there was a deaf church there because we just showed up at a hearing church and we preached on Sunday morning. Well, Sunday afternoon, we saw this group of people coming. They were signing. The deaf church had heard that there were 2 Americans that had come. One was deaf and one preached to the deaf, and they came to the church. So you know what happened? We had Bible study class. We taught them, and the man there in the middle, this man right here, that man was saved that afternoon. And we got to talking. This is the pastor. So this is David right there. And we began to talk, and we found out that he had been trained very little, almost none. And so we began to talk with him and said, if David and I come back, can we help you and train you? Yes, 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 yes. So David and I went back about 3 times and stayed in Plovdiv and trained this deaf man to be pastor of a deaf church. All right? It was very interesting. We would go into a restaurant in the afternoon at about 4. We would sit around. We eat supper or dinner, if you're fancy. We eat supper, and then we would sit around for 4 hours in that restaurant. They would not kick us out. It's the culture there. Many times you'll go into a restaurant and buy a drink. And sit there and sit there and sit there and talk and talk and talk. They not bother you. And so David on this end of the table, teaching and teaching, his Bible open, books open, teaching this pastor. I'm on this other end. There's a lady there that spoke English, that was the interpreter for the deaf, and I was training her in rules of interpretation and so forth. It was very, very interesting. Deaf lady saved. I've traveled all over Peru. Many, 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 many deaf people saved in Peru. In Hungary, I was contacted by this couple right here, and they said, we would like to establish a deaf ministry. Can you come and help us? Yeah, I said, yeah, I can come and help you. So I went and taught, starting on Friday night, all day Saturday. Sunday we suspended for church, and then Sunday afternoon I taught and taught and taught and taught. When I finished and left, she's pregnant. You can see that. She's pregnant. Had really difficult birth. Many operations on the baby, also forth. And so I never heard nothing. And I thought, devil won again. Now, wasted my time. About 3 years ago, I received an email from her. And she says, I don't know if you'll remember me, but I had a special name for you. Hungarian words like this. I couldn't pronounce it. I heard it. I could not pronounce it, but it means grandfather. Yeah. So she said that, and she wrote that in the letter, and she said, I hope you will remember me. And I thought to myself, yes, I remember. She said, I want to explain to you what happened. She said, went through operations, some medical problems and everything. She said about 2 years, we began to invite the deaf to come into the church. It grew to about 20 to 25 deaf people. They wanted their own church. So they established their own deaf church and chose their deaf man to become pastor of that church. There's now a deaf church in Valencia, Hungary. Yes. This is Romania. We trained this young man. 1994. The first person to surrender in a foreign country to work with the deaf. And I began to train him to preach, just very skilled preach to the deaf, still doing it today.
Yeah.
There's a picture here of several of the deaf that have been saved. The woman in the middle here is another young lady that we trained to interpret for the deaf. I was in Romania about 4 years ago, and it was a special day. This was a young deaf man that was being baptized, and I took a picture of him. And this is Cornell. He preaches to the deaf every Saturday. They have come together for Saturday Bible class and so forth. And then on Sunday morning they meet in the hearing church with interpreters. So good ministry. France. How many times in my travel? Nothing. December 2010, a missionary died with cancer. Never understanding, or never seeing the answer to his prayer. 2010, I with 3 ladies went to Paris. Mother and daughter, 2, they were just skilled in playing the piano and singing. Signing, nothing. But singing, playing the piano, wow, they're very, very skilled. The other was a young lady that maybe you have met before. You know Remington?
Yeah.
Yeah. His daughter, Amber,
Mm-hmm.
went with me. I've known her from little Lehigh like this, and she's always pick. I want to go to France. I want to go to France. I want to go to France. So I contacted her and I said, 2010, I'm going to France. And so she went with me.
Okay.
Okay, you know that she's skilled in signs.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I presented the need for deaf workers in the hearing church. I'm standing here. Missionary's wife is standing here voicing in French. And Amber is over here signing ASL, but she's signing. Okay, she doesn't understand French sign language. So I again challenged them and I said, the deaf here are your responsibility. Not a missionary from the States, it's your responsibility. Somebody needs to surrender. Amber's over here signing away. The missionary is voicing in French. I'm talking in English because I don't understand French. Okay? Finished. Sat down, and I look out on the audience. Nothing. Nothing. Sat down and I thought, Lord, I don't understand. But that's your decision. Finished church. Missionary's wife came to me with this big grin on her face and she said, Bob, that's her husband's name, is rejoicing in heaven today. And I thought, oh boy, maybe crazy mind go down or something. And I said, why? And she says, 2 young ladies surrendered to learn sign language. Those are the 2. Barbara and Sabrina. We were supposed to leave. That was on Sunday. We were supposed to leave on Monday. I said to the missionary's wife, her name is Gail, I said, Gail, I need to begin their training. I can't put it off for 1 year and wait to begin their training. And she said, well, just stay here. And I said, I can't. I got to fly home tomorrow. I have meetings and not enough money. Boy, it's expensive in France. It's expensive. Almost as expensive as in California. But I said, I will go home and I will send an email. And I said, when I can raise $2,000, I will come back. This is in June, the end of June. And she said, well, you'll need to come the end of August because it's vacation time. And after that, school begins and work begins. There's not enough time. And I said, well, I'll pray about it. And so I arrived at my home in the morning. In the afternoon, I emailed, and I have more than 800 people on my email list.
Mm-hmm.
I emailed and sent it out, and I said, 2 young ladies surrendered. I need to begin training. When I can earn $2,000, I will fly back and begin their training. 15 minutes later, that's how quick email. 15 minutes later, I got a call from the church in Florida. And they said, we'll give you $350 for the trip. And I said, thank you, Lord. About a week later now, I pulled in about $950. At 3 in the morning, I'm lying awake on my bed. My wife is asleep. I'm awake, and I'm talking with the Lord. And I said, hey, Lord, if I am really stingy, I can take care of all of my needs in France on the $950. But boy, I need $2,000 for that plane ticket. Now, you know, deaf people, to get your attention, say, hey, look at me, hey, look at me. I think God said, shh, hey, Jim. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What about your FF miles? You understand the FF miles? When you fly, you save the miles. After a while, you can get a free ticket. I said, thank you, Lord. Oh, sorry, Joyce. Tomorrow morning, pick up that telephone and I dial. I said, do I have enough FF miles to go to Paris? No, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Picked up the phone. Do I have enough miles to go to Paris? Yes, you do. When would you like to leave? And I told him the dates, and it cost me $150. The last 2 weeks in August, I was in France, beginning to teach and to train them to work with the deaf. I was there this past April again to continue their training. Remember the city called Plufkin? Okay, this is the other city called Varna. Varna, the sign is this, Varna. We arrived there, and every year we go back and we establish a Bible class for the deaf. And when we finish, you can see David there, that one. And when we finished, they would always say, when are you coming back? When are you coming back? So we told them, and in 2010, we had a Bible class. We have all the time between 15 and 20 deaf people, you know. And I come to a Bible class. We had 4 to show up for Bible class, but one of the ladies said to me, there are now 32 deaf people going to the Jehovah's Witness Church. I said to the hearing pastor in the hearing church, I said, I will not come back until in the future, if somebody will surrender to work with the deaf, I will come back and train them. But it's expensive, and I can't waste my time and waste my money. We can't go over once a year and defeat the false teaching of the Jehovah's Witness. You can't do it. The Jehovah's people there, skilled signs. They're there every day, helping the deaf, and they're winning them to their church. This is what I did in 2011. It's getting close to the end of 2012, and so we'll be changing all of this. But in 2011, you will notice I drove 440,000 miles and flew 40,000 miles all around. Preached different meetings there. We had 61 decisions. With God the glory. Okay? We're waiting. This is the book. It was almost $100. Just lunch. Nothing special, nothing. Just regular food. But it's worth it, because last April, when I went there, and I contacted him and said, you know, we go eat again. He said, yeah. As we were walking to the restaurant, he said to me, he said, you are called, he's signing French. He said, you're called an evangelist? And I said, yes. He said, what do you do? Yes. I explained to him that an evangelist preached the gospel. Travel. I said all over America, different countries. I traveled to preach the gospel to the deaf. The gospel is the death, the burial, and the resurrection of Jesus, and I explained the gospel to him. Well, by that time we had arrived at the restaurant, and we sat down. And he said, you know, growing up in the deaf school, the priest would come. He said, my responsibility, you know, the smell, yeah, yeah. And he said, I also, he said, I poured, oh, you don't know that, that's water, water. Poured the water, he said, a little bit, no, he said, a little bit water, little bit, and he said, mine, mine, he said, phew. I said, yeah, many of your priests get hooked on that. He said, yeah. And I said, did they, that means interpret for you. This is interpret in French. And he said, no. I said, you understand? This is, let's understand. Understand? He said, no. I said, can I explain to you? So I explained again the gospel to him, and I said, he said, please. That means yes, please. He said, please. I said, okay. Now, the next time, which will probably be April of next year, I'll go back. This time, I'm going to invite him to receive Jesus Christ in his heart for Savior. Would you really pray that God would soften his heart? What an influence that one man, he's president of the Deaf Club, he's manager of the Deaf, not Bible, bookstore. There it is right there. Wow. Now, I thought maybe you would be interested. I didn't have it. Ooh. Anyway, travel in Paris, okay? You buy a little ticket, costs about $15 American money for one day. You can ride on the bus, the train, it's called the metro. Metro, any of it, you go anywhere in Paris. And so I would get on the bus first and ride the bus to the train station, get on the train, go into the middle of Paris, get off, find the right metro and get on it and travel to get off and then walk to the bookstore. One morning I decided I'm going to count the steps up. Not escalators, just walk, walk. 331 steps up. One day. One day. And then when you get off of the metro at the end, it takes you 20 minutes to walk to the bookstore. Not an easy thing to do, you know. That's why I'm so thin. Okay, this year in June, 5 through 18, we went to Peru with 2 young ladies with me. And the first week we were in a hearing school. The 2 young ladies had heard a missionary describe the school there. They wanted to go visit. And I said, okay, first week we'll be in the hearing school, the second week with the deaf. Okay, so that was fine with them. And when we arrived, we found out in this school they used both languages, English and Spanish. They just switched back and forth, back and forth. So I could preach in English. And I used signs while I'm preaching like I'm doing now. And, you know, the kids were really, really interested. And then on Wednesday night, I was in a hearing church. And I arrived at church early, and I was waiting for the pastor, and the pastor came in and he started signing to me. And I said, wow, you understand signs? And he said, a little bit, I understand. He said, a man you know teaching me. And I said, what's his name? And he said, Hugo. And I said, yeah, I know Hugo. Since he was a little boy, I've known him for a long time. He's now a preacher. And is doing just a fantastic job. But the preacher said, well, he's coming tonight. I said, oh, great, great. You know, so he came, and so I had to sign Peruvian signs, but I had to speak in English. And this lady,
Interpreter.
the pastor's wife, voiced in Spanish for me. Good. And then I was in different classes where I challenged the kids to pray once a week that God would send workers to the deaf. I challenged them to do that. Many raised their hand and saying that they would do that. Well, the second week, we flew to a city called Iquitos, or Iquitos, some of them. Len Porter is there. Yeah, Len Porter. You will see a picture of her in just a minute. Oh, here it is. That is the Amazon River. Yeah, big, long, all the way through South America. These are the two young ladies that were with me. We're on a fast boat. The spray was coming up. It was fast, and it still took us an hour to get. We were going to a village, all right? And we arrived at the village. This is the pastor's home. Okay? That's the pastor's home. This is his living room. You will notice it has a bench here and a table. That's all. By the time that we got there,
Go on.
I needed to go to the bathroom.
Hold on.
Yeah, I needed to go to the bathroom. When I got here, I needed to go to the bathroom. So I said to the interpreter, I said, ask her if I can use the bathroom. And she said, no. And I said, si, which means yes. It's not a choice. And she said, okay, come. She took me to the back door, opened the door, and she said, now, the backyard. They had no toilet, no bathroom or nothing. There were no trees there. Just empty. I didn't care. Okay? No, that's true, yes. Yeah, that's true. The next time you go in your bathroom and you can close the door, turn the light on and sit down, flush it out, you thank the Lord for it.
Doesn't think it's stove.
Never had it.
No stove?
What?
No soap.
For the bathroom?
No, there was no bathroom. How could there be soap when there's no bathroom?
Oh. They have a hole in the ground, some moon house.
Well, in this village, there lived this girl. She's probably 16, never gone to school. Never gone to school. Now, the missionary, Len Porter, has come there 2 or 3 times before and has taught her a few signs. Important signs like eat and time and sit and, that kind of thing. She told us, she led us to a place where there was another deaf man. He's probably 21, 22, never schooled. No signs, nothing. So They were with us, and we're going to travel to another village, and this is the road. That's the road. All right? To the other village. Yeah, let me show you. We're going to go on a ride here, all right?
No road. No ride.
That's right.
Yeah. And there's no padding on the seat. And there's no padding on my seat.
Why you broken back on the way, huh? Uh-oh, at one time. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So we arrived at the second village and we found this man, deaf. He's working. We go to the place where he is working. We talk to the boss and he said, "Hey, you, that's come here, you know." And so they said, "Hey." And the boss said, one of the men that was with us, the pastor of the church, said something in Spanish. And he said, "Yeah, go ahead, go ahead." By the time we were finished, there were 9 people eating lunch, and I paid for it.
Oh.
Yeah. Then we went back to the church and had a church meeting, okay? And so I said to one of the young ladies, "You're going to tell a Bible story, okay?" And so she said, "All right." And so just before we began, because I got to act it, drama,
Okay.
they don't understand signs, all right? So I could sign, but so you got to act it, you got to drama. And I said to him, "What story are you going to tell?" She said, "David and the giant." And I said, "All right. Can you see me dramatizing the giant?" Well, you know, it's easier to say David. I'm David. You know, I'm David. You know, drama. Yeah, that's the only way. No need to sign. Not even Spanish signs. They don't understand. Never in school. You can't give them a Bible and say, "Read it." They can't read. They can't write.
Wow.
No, nothing. This is Lynn Porter. Lynn Porter. Some of you have met her before. And very, very faithful missionary to the deaf. Her mother and father were missionaries on the Amazon. They lived on a boat. No, boat. They lived on a boat. Thank you. They lived on a boat. And she has lived in Peru all of her life. Several years ago became interested in the deaf. And just a wonderful, fantastic worker with the deaf. And so she said, "I'm going to tell the gospel to these deaf." And there were hearing people too. And I said, "All right, I will act it out." So I drama the gospel. I enjoy. You know, wow, it's so good. And while we were in church, it rained. Want to get off? That is in you. Here the girl is telling the story with open book so that they can see the picture. I'm signing. Now we're in the church. And so most of the deaf understand some delimited, but most of them understand sign Peruvian, Spanish sign. And so they speak and I sign. And Lynn Porter then voices in Spanish for the hearing people that are there. making things. At the end of DBS, I preached. And I don't know if you know, they have what is called the Gospel Cube. You open it up, and it shows the cross, and you open it up, and it shows the resurrection. Well, this girl had a big one, like this. And so I said, okay, you use that, and I will preach the gospel. And she said, okay. So we used that and showed the different pictures. And I preached to the deaf, gave an invitation, and 9 people came forward to make decisions. Wow. Well, we also took a slow boat. Slow boat, and I mean it was slow, but that was fine. But when we were getting in it, we had to walk a 2x6. Now, a 2x6, you know, just like this. We have to walk that probably from here to the road out there to get into the boat, okay? And it's wobbly. It's not nailed. No, just right there. And so we walk out, get into the boat, and I noticed that the owner of any other brought a coffee can. Now, growing up in Florida, we always carried a coffee can with us for 2 things. 1, for worms, and we put the worms in there, or 2, for dipping the water out of the boat. That's why they brought the big can to dip water out of our slow boat. It leaked. I can't swim.
Oh.
No life jacket.
Gentlemen.
Nothing. No. For an hour and a half, we were on that slow, yeah, all the time. Yeah. This is how the people live on the Amazon. Some of them build it up on, up high so that the water rises and falls okay. Others build it on, see this one. It's built right on the water with logs so that when the river goes up, the house goes up. When it goes down, it goes up and down, up and down. And some people live there their full life.
We're not a fish over here. Lots of fish.
That is the outhouse.
Wow.
The outhouse, yes. But at least they have privacy. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. As we walked by, I saw this little girl sitting out there. And I thought, I wonder if she will ever in the future hear about Jesus. She may live, no, not, I don't know that she's dead, but I imagine she's hearing. She may grow up an entire life, live there, never move, stay right there. They use the river for everything. You'll see a mother sitting in the boat, washing clothes in a bucket and dipping and dipping, and washing and dipping. And you'll see them fishing for food. You'll see the kids swimming in that river. They go to the bathroom in that river also. Well, the last Sunday we were there, I preached in the deaf church. And I preached on 2 Timothy chapter 4, being an example for others. IPM. I've joined with IPM to help people like them and James, as they travel on deputation, I will be voicing for them in hearing churches to raise their support so that they can go and help other foreign countries and train them. I'll be training them to work in foreign countries. It's not like doing the work here. It's different. It's different. Well, how many times do you meet a deaf person here that's never been in school? Right, that knows nothing about sign language. Many countries, they've never been in church. Never had a Bible. Most of the deaf in foreign countries never had a Bible. Never.
They print the Bible though, right?
Yeah, they print Bibles, but the deaf can't afford to buy them. In Bulgaria, I gave the pastor money to buy Bibles for the deaf when they were saved so that he could give them a Bible that they could have of their own. They find it difficult to read the Bible, just like deaf people here in America. So it's a little bit different working with the deaf in foreign countries than here. And so I'm going to train them for that. And I'll be going with them into the different countries to help them to train the nationals. That's the purpose. We want to train the nationals in these different countries. Because if the country closes, Americans go home. If the country closes, the nationals stay. Question. Do you think that God would command us to do something we can't? No. You said no. That's right. Good answer. No, he would not.
Because He cannot give us something we can handle.
I'm sorry.
Because God cannot give us something we cannot handle.
That's right. God cannot give us something that we can't do, or that God can't give us the ability to do it. So, there's the question. How are you going to help reach the 7 billion people living on this earth, or the 400 million deaf people living on this earth? What are you going to do? Now look. First of all, you can pray. You can pray the Lord that will send workers. Okay? Second, you can surrender to do His will. Do what God touches your heart to do. Get busy in this church. Get busy in this church. God calls people out of the local church. And then obey what God tells you to do. All right? You're never too old to travel to foreign countries to help with that. Maybe too young, but most of you are not too much young that you can't go. Like I said, in January I'm going to be in Brazil. In April I will be in France, I know, and probably in Austria. I've been invited to go, and that's near Paris, so I will probably connect the two and travel back and forth. I want to go back to Belarus. I tried to be at this month. This month I wanted to go to be in Belarus, and I could not do it because God wanted me here. Many different places. So need the gospel. So need the gospel. gospel for the deaf. Who better to explain the gospel than that who deaf? Let's pray. Father, thank you for the time to meet together this afternoon. I pray, Father, thank you for the time to show about our ministry, the ministry that you've given us to do, and not theirs, but ours. There's so many places, Father, where the deaf need the gospel, and nobody there to tell them, or places where the false is being taught, because no one is interested enough to surrender to teach them the truth. Use the meeting this afternoon for your glory in Jesus' name.
Amen.